Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. On this episode of the show, Patrick Spencer, the Managing Director of Moneytree, is with me for a fascinating conversation about how financial advisors can build better relationships with their clients through the use of technology. Now, quick little warning for you, PSA, if you will. Patrick and I also have some fun, a little detour on this episode for some dad bragging and bonding time as we discover that both of us have kids with something very special in common. And then we also, I think we touched on some barbecue since we both live here in Austin, Texas, and you're about to have a craving for barbecue. And hopefully there's some near you because Patrick and I are getting together later this week for some Terry Black's barbecue. A little commercial for you, Terry Black's. We're coming for you. Cannot wait. Anyway, all right. Before we get to the conversation with Patrick, please do make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, the YouTubes, or wherever you'd like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest for the show, hit me up. I'm basically at Mike Langford everywhere on the internet, or you can shoot us an email, podcast@finservemarketing.com. Okay, let's get to the conversation with Patrick Spencer. Well, Patrick Spencer, welcome to the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. So wonderful to see you.
Hey, great to see you again, Mike, and thanks a lot for the invitation to the show. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm thrilled to have you on the show. And I kind of said this before, but we should be in person recording this episode because you're in Austin, I'm in Austin. I think the next time you and I get together, we'll absolutely fire one up in person. But you just got back from a major family event. You said you had a family reunion up in Indiana and so forth. So
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, yeah. Well, first, if we do this again, it needs to be at Terry Black's, and we'll try to get a quiet part of the restaurant and just have some good barbecue while we're doing this. So I'm all in for that.
I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan. So anybody who listening or watching the episode, Terry Black's is one of the best barbecue places in all of Austin. You may have heard of Franklin Barbecue, which has become like one of the more famous ones. But I think us folks who live in Austin know Terry Black's is where it's at. Better location, shorter line. Oh, what else to say? It's legendary.
Better barbecue.
Barbecue. I always joke with people, like, when I describe brisket, I'm like, listen, the brisket you're going to about to have, it's like, imagine if like the best steak you've ever had got together with butter and just like kind of, because it's not soaked in butter, but like it just like melts like butter. It just, it's nuts.
Exactly.
It's so, your eyes will roll into the back of your head. It's just so damn good.
Absolutely.
Now, of course.
Yeah.
Frequent listeners to the show know that I am a food lemming, which basically means if we start talking about a food, I will develop a craving for said food in a way that makes it impossible for me to continue life without seeking out that food. So I will almost certainly in the next week or so be at Terry Black's. So
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, hey, I'm so thrilled you come on the show, and I was thrilled when your team reached out because I'm not sure if other members of the audience feel this way, but one of the things I love about our industry is I'm constantly being exposed to new companies, new solutions, and I think it's like a lot of industries, you continue to innovate and grow. But when your team reached out, I had to ask myself, like, have I heard of Moneytree? Like, the name sounds familiar, but there's lots of companies that have money in the name, lots of companies that have tree in the name. Like, I don't know if I have or not. And that's not an insult, other than it's more like, I'm not sure. I don't know. I didn't know off the top of my head if I knew what Moneytree did.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I've been in this industry for a while now, and I spend a lot of time talking to tech providers who support the wealth management industry. So why don't we do this? Let's kick it off with a quick 60-second elevator pitch, and then we'll dive into things from there.
All right, sounds good. So yes, we get that quite a lot because there's a lot of different money trees that are out there, whether it's payday lending, bill pay, or what have you. But our money tree has been around since 1981, and it's strictly financial planning software. And so, over the decades, it's been owned by two individuals. It's now owned by Accutech. We acquired Moneytree in 2019, and essentially, it's a very comprehensive tool that I would say probably had its heyday 2006, 2013, 14. And then after that, in terms of some of the other competition that came out, right, really started putting money towards developing better looking solutions, better reports, things like that. So Accutech acquired Moneytree in 2019, as I mentioned. And so since that time, we've been doing the exact same thing. Let's rev this thing up. It has a great reputation. We've got a few thousand advisors across the country. A lot of them have been with us for multiple years. And so we're really leaning into them, listening to, hey, what does the next generation of financial planning need to be? And we launched that this past July.
That's really, really cool. I love stories like this. Like you said, the company started in 1981. I'm trying to remember, there was another company I had on years ago, and they said, we're a 30-year-old startup or whatever the way
Yeah,
they describe
yeah.
themselves. But I think that's true. I mean, like lots of companies who have been around for a very long time iterate, right? There's the
Absolutely.
industry changes as you kind of alluded to, new entrants into the field. There's also solutions where like, another company, they innovate before you do. And you're like, oh,
Hmm.
the landscape has changed. You think about other businesses outside of our industry, you say, what happened to the Kodaks of the world when digital photography came about? And like some of those companies went out of business. Some of them had to innovate and change the way that they do business. I'm a business history nerd. So uh, what was the original money tree solution, and kind of what are some of the landmarks along the way of the
Hmm.
evolution, at least as you know it?
Yeah. So, which is it's interesting. I've been to conferences and I've asked people who's heard of Money Tree, and then how long have you been a client? And twice this has happened to me where I've met a client that's been with us since 1981.
Oh, wow.
And just phenomenal story of how they kind of grew up. And in the beginning, they would send information to the owner to say, hey, what about this calculation? Could we put this into the product? And so it really was kind of a crowdsourcing type of product development in the very beginning in the 80s. And so that part's been cool to reconnect with some of those clients that have been with us, since the beginning, or maybe the 80s or the 90s, to really kind of understand what was financial planning like back then. And so, early on, it was really about building calculations. And it was probably more goal based in the beginning,
Mm.
more for folks in the accumulation phase to say, okay, I'm this old now. I can save this much. I'd like to have this much in retirement. Am I going to make it?
Yeah,
And so, but then from there, obviously, a couple things happened. One is the owners started getting a little bit older. They started approaching, well, what about pre-retirement? We got so many things to start thinking about. We got Social Security. I have a pension, the stock options, and just all the things that go with pre-retirement. I've got to pay down my debt because I'm not going to have this job forever.
sure.
And so it really evolved into not just goal-based, but then also cash flow-based planning. And as part of that, because both the owners also dealt with the investment side as well, they delved into the Monte Carlo. And so, not sure where the Monte Carlo was first iterated,
Sure.
but we got to be number one or number two in that mix because our Monte Carlo has been around for decades. We do 10,000 simulations. The algorithms get updated with different market indices as well as events that take place within the industry. So we feel like that's, and Kitsis has called that out on some of his surveys and research with regards to our Monte Carlo. So we're very, very proud of that. That came along probably after the turn of the century. And then from there, it really became diving deeper into the tax planning side because what happened was the company got sold to a client who was also kind of a self defined math nerd. But he was also not just a CFP, also a CPA. And so he wanted to delve much more into the tax planning side. And so that's where, we have basically the mock-up of tax returns inside our software so you can do tax loss harvesting, take a look at gains and losses, and really begin to understand how can I provide the best advice to our client. And that's what Accutech saw in this thing. So Accutech is a trust software company. It's been around since 1987. And
Oh,
so what they saw in Moneytree was that comprehensiveness that would really help with regards to estate planning and trust, whether it's a trust company, bank, et cetera. And so we've integrated with our Cheetah platform, which is a wealth management platform. But we also chose to say, let's keep developing this product out. Let's go deeper into tax planning. Let's go deeper into retirement planning so that we can provide better advice for the advisors to give to their clients.
You hit on a couple of things during your kind of walk down the journey there, Money Tree,
Hmm.
that I think are worth diving in on a little bit deeper and realizing how profound they are, right?
Hmm.
These kind of landmarks. The first one that really jumped out to me was the concept of goals-based planning, right? And most financial advisors who have been in the industry for a couple of decades will remember when goals-based planning became a thing, right? Prior to
Hmm.
that, I say this almost every single episode, but you know, the advisors who've been in the industry for a long time, they used to be called stockbrokers, right? So they were
Hmm.
very
Right.
product focused, right? And the thing that mattered was okay, selling product and how big was your portfolio? Like, are we helping you grow
Hmm.
your portfolio? It wasn't always connected to the client's goals. Financial planning, if you will, like thinking about like, hey, is I may have X amount of dollars in my account, a couple of million. Is that enough?
Hmm.
Is it going to allow me to achieve the goals I have in life? It was almost like, hey, we're going to help you grow your money. You client figure out if this is going to work for you. So
Right.
I think number
Right.
one, I think that's hugely, it was a profound change to the industry. Just the notion that we are going to now talk to you about your goals, and your goals may have different stages. It may be retirement, it may be leaving a legacy, it may be paying for kids college, it may, all the things that we talk about in of the major life events. And the other one was the Monte Carlo concept.
Hmm.
And anybody who studied finance and understood Monte Carlo simulation, and if you did any type of analytical stuff in college, you probably ran some, like, okay, how
Hmm.
likely is this thing going to happen? How often will this fail? Really is what we're looking for. And I remember the first time that I saw it as it relates to wealth management, and it was a game changer, not just for the advisor in me, but also for the client, right?
Hmm.
Because when you can tell the client, like, hey, let me walk you through what we did here. We simulated this plan that we have for you, right? And we took all known data, historical data, and we put that into this model. And then we ran your assumptions for savings
Hmm.
rate and how much you have now and the return we expect and so forth. We ran this through the simulation. And X amount of times, success. The likelihood of failure is this big.
Hmm.
We have a high degree of confidence that we're going to help you achieve your goals. And we're going to continue to do that all the time. So, in the event that we ever get out of this bandwidth where we're like, hey, our confidence rating has slipped below, I'll use 90%,
Hmm.
we may need to, as as an advisor and a client, make some adjustments. But just know that we're
Right.
constantly doing this because we're always getting new data,
Hmm.
right? Because all the things that could happen might happen. Some of them might happen more frequently, some of them might happen less frequently, but they can still happen again. Like, we had a Great Depression once, we had a major financial crisis in '08. Are those likely events? No. Could they happen again? Yes. Well, what happens when those things happen? It's
Hmm.
all that
Yep.
type of stuff. So, really big deals, right? Those two major concepts.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, if you think of, and you raise a really good point. So, as we take a look at the advisor population, we know a lot of retiring, but it's more than that. A lot of the ones that are retiring grew up as stockbrokers, grew up of gathering assets, not gathering plans, or not
Mm,
fee only or fee hourly, right? And that's kind of evolved, and that's been really good because the end result is a client is getting better served by more detailed discussions, right? If I'm just gathering assets and I'm just on goals based, and I'm not taking a look at expenses, for example, from a cash flow perspective, just the data suggests one is more detailed than the other. Not necessarily
mm,
better, depends on the
right.
client, depends on the advisor, the situation, all of that. But what we saw was just an evolution of conversation. If you think about it, yes, there's a lot of math that's going into this and algorithm calculations and all of that. But the goal really of all of this is to have that better engaged conversation with the client. So that the client walks away more confident. And to your point, what did the Monte Carlo do? The Monte Carlo is really cool behind the scenes. And for those engineers out there, they probably geeked out on, okay, you got to tell
Yeah.
me, how did this simulation work?
Yeah.
But for the population in general, it was that one piece of evidence that says green light, red light, yes or no. Green light, I'm going to make it. Yes, I'll be okay in retirement. And that's really what we're looking for, right? The Monte Carlo was a game changer from the standpoint of what it provided in a very condensed way. Enter all
Mm.
the information, let the simulation algorithms do their work. Voila, we have a number. But what it did for that client, once it was introduced and they walked out their door, it was like, all right, I'm going to be okay. I
Yeah.
don't make a lot of money, but over 30 years, I'm going
Yeah.
to have a good chunk of change. To me, that's the game changing part. And that's what we're continuing to try to do at Moneytree is what can be that next game changer, not just for the advisor, but for the client. So that when they
Yeah.
walk away from that advisor, they feel like they get me, they know me, and they are helping me. I tell this story where actually my wife owns her own financial advisory firm.
Hmm.
And I went to the mailbox one day, and I've been in sales for a long time. I started in commercial banking and then worked my way through technology, et cetera. I see this postcard and I recognize the people on it. And it looks like a couple of her clients that are both on an elephant with a gentleman in between the elephants. And it says on there, all because of you. And
Hmm.
I'm looking at that, that's pretty daggone cool. And so I go in there and I throw that down and I say, honey, I said, look at this postcard you got. She says, oh, that's from so and so. And that was nice of them. I said, no, honey. I said, I'm in sales and let's take a look. They were on South African safari. They took time to get their picture. They then took time to get that picture turned into a postcard, took
Yeah.
time to write a note on it, stamp it, and make sure it got sent to you before they got back.
Yeah.
And she was like, you know what? I've never thought of it that way. But you're right. And that's what advisors do. To me, I want that moment where that client thinks so much of their advisor, they would take that type of event to thank them.
Yeah.
And that's the end goal. Simon Sinek talks about, the golden circle and the why. Our why is really it's for the advisor to make them look really good, but it's also for that client to make sure they can walk away confidently because no advisor, no advisor out there wants to look a client in the face and say, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the epitome of not good.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, getting up every day, that going to work every day. That's kind of like where we lean into. But you're exactly right. There's been these features and these functionalities that have been created that truly help the advisor, but then it really helps the client to isolate because the client has so much to take in. The advisor, Mike, you've been there. You look at it and like that's your playbook. You can open up to any page. You know what play you're going to run. You know why you're going to run it, and you know the result it's going to have. The client doesn't. They're walking in going, Mike, help me understand. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're coming from.
Love it. Love it. And you teed up my next topic, which is great, is talking about relationships, right? We
Mhm.
always talk about in the wealth management and financial advisory space that we're in a relationship based business. And that's more than just kind of a nice thing to say to remind advisors that clients are important. The actual business, your actual business for financial advisors is 100% reliant on client relationships. There's no factory, there's no equipment, there's software licenses like Moneytree has. No, no,
Right.
no, no. It's basically the relationships you have with your clients. That
Mhm.
is what you own, if you will, as an advisor, and it's what generates your revenue. And it's obvious that Moneytree gets it. I mean, you clearly get it. On your homepage, visitors are met with this message that says, build better
Mhm.
relationships, right?
Right. Right.
And the premier solution for advisors who value relationships. So I guess the one big question that I would like to just hear your thoughts on is, what are some of the relationship gaps
Mhm.
that an advisor might not realize exist today? And how does a solution like Moneytree help close those gaps?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And you look at the industry and you think of of all the behavioral finance that's gotten so popular, say over the last decade or so, and you think of all of the sales methodologies that are out there, because at the end of the day, advisors, you're salespeople, and embrace that. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative. Embrace the fact that you're there to help someone with that journey. But you're right, there are gaps, and there's a study that was done by Y Charts in 2023, got published in February. Now, the participant size was small, it was less than 800 participants. But the results, even if the results are off by 10, 20, 30%, I think you really have to start listening to what took place. And so, for example, 54% of those surveyed left their advisor in 2023.
Oh, wow.
Another 12% left 100% robo relationship and sought out a human advisor. So, okay, let's kind of unpack that a little bit. That, the rest of the data, what it showed was communication needs to be more frequent, not annually, not quarterly, and the more money they have with you, the more they want to hear from you. Now, and the point being is, though, ask your client. Now, if you've got a very large client, and you've truly gone through a good process with them, and they say, you know what, Mike, I'm good once a year, buddy. I know you, I trust you. I'll
Yeah.
reach out. That's okay. But the key is the advisors weren't necessarily having that type of conversation, because the research went on to say that it was the frequency of the communication, but it was also the content of the communication. And clients were walking away feeling like, you don't know me, and specifically around teaching them about the market. A lot of times as salespeople, we don't want to talk to the client because we feel like we might screw it up. We might say something and they want to leave, or we say something and it peaks to where they go do research, and then they leave.
Yeah.
So there's just that innate feeling in salespeople that I got to balance my conversation to make sure I don't overdo it. I'm not overstepping. I'm not overwhelming, and I get that. That's a fair consideration. But the research is saying, understand that the clients don't know everything you know about the market. So they want information about the market that's general. They want information about the market that's specific to their portfolio and their goals. And they want to make sure that when they walk out the door, that you understand their objectives.
Mm.
And so it all came down to that digging in, that engagement with the client. And that's one of the reasons why we started leaning into the build relationships, because of the story about the postcard, and just the research and the behavioral finance. All those things were out there to help advisors understand how to work, engage,
Yeah.
communicate with their clients. And so that gap that exists from our perspective is really tools to help engage. So more visual tools, more comprehensive tools. T3 states that the advisor tech stack, the top three things that are most important to an advisor is their CRM, which stands for customer relationship
Yeah.
management. So going to the relationship,
Yeah.
financial planning, so you have the right conversation, and portfolio management, so that you're taking into account the investments and tying that all together. So, but where the gap seems to exist is the advice gathering and making sure it's comprehensive. You're only as good as data out as the data going in.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good tools out there that are beginning to gather more information and proactively ask questions of the client, whether it's through AI, a checklist, or a conversation. So that's helping get more good data in the
Yeah.
mix. And then on the output side, better visuals showing comparisons, right? There's a tool in our solution called the what if scenario, where you can compare up to three different portfolios, the goal of which is to, if I'm your advisor, Mike, and I'm sitting down with you, I'm going to say, Mike, this first one, well, that's what we agreed on last year, right? That's what we agreed on a year ago. This next one, are with everything that's taken place and the reassessment of your goals, is where I think we should go, and some changes we're going to talk
Yeah.
about. But then this third column, this is the same plan, but now we're going to get real time changes. So as we have a conversation today, and you say, you know what, Pat, we are going to go ahead and sell that house in Austin and move back to Boston because we love the winters there. And so we're going to, I'm sorry, this goes to a kind of a pre-call
No, that's fine. I
conversation.
love it. I love. I actually love that you did that. It's so fantastic. Like tying it all together. Yeah. So before Pat continues, before we click the record button, we were talking about, like, Pat's from Indiana, and I'm originally from Boston, and we're both here in Austin, and we were joking about, like, the winters, like
Mhm.
how much how more harsh they are from our previous places and so forth. And I was teasing about how, like, people who are like, oh, I wouldn't mind living in the Northeast. And like, well, please go visit in February or January. If you're going to go up there, get a true, genuine
Right.
feel of
Get
what
the
it's going to
full
be like. Cause
assessment.
man, oh man. And then, oh, by the way, try commuting after it snowed and all the salt is on your windshield and all that type of stuff. So anyways, continue. I sorry.
Yeah, no, I just had
This
to
is
pull
good
that
stuff.
in.
I
I
love
thought,
it.
well,
I
that
love
that
it.
that would be a conversation. But the point being is
Yeah.
have tools that give clients choices, but within guardrails. So I'm not going
Yeah.
to ask, well, Mike, what do you think now about retirement? It's like,
Yeah.
well, no, let's talk about what we have talked about. Talk about maybe what's taken place during the year,
Yeah.
and then let's talk about what's come up most recently that we need to take into consideration. So those are some of the places where I think there are gaps. But man, after attending Future Proof and seeing all these new companies with AI
Yeah.
note taking and how they can basically pull prospects, summarize notes, go into the CRM.
Yeah.
Those are some great tools, some great visual mind maps coming out with regards to estate planning and so forth. So lots of good things. And I think we're truly starting to get the real gist of how do we really and truly dig into the clients and understand how to best help them.
I love it. You know, I want to tee in or zero in on the visual concept.
Hmm.
You brought it up a couple of times, and as you were describing it, and I started thinking, man, that's just so important in today's world.
Hmm.
And we've changed, right, as a society in many ways. I'm not a genius for just saying that that's a reality. It's like, this little thing that we all have in our pockets now
Hmm.
has changed all of our behaviors.
Right.
It's changed the way we consume content. It's the reason why we produce podcasts, right? It's because, hey, listen, we know that people are listening to things while they're doing other things. They're walking around just anywhere you go. Look, people have earbuds, right? Some of
Hmm.
them are listening to music, some of them are listening to podcasts, right? We know that people prefer video, right? And graphical information, visual representation of information more than dense reading. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean that there aren't people who still like to fire up and read a white paper. Like, those things exist. Increasingly, however, attention spans have gone down. The way people consume information is visual in nature, and they want rich media to describe what's going on. And having a solution, as you're describing, of like, hey, let's put a visual in front of you, client, versus, hey, here's a report, says how much money you have
Hmm.
and all of your accounts broken down by position. And here's, if here's how much money you might have in the future, type of thing. And then here's a whole big wordy description of what's happening in the markets and this and that. It's like, well, what if we
Hmm.
showed you
Right.
instead?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And kind of going back to the Monte Carlo, right?
Yeah.
Keeping it simple. A
Yeah.
lot of data coming into that, but it gave them a number. You have
Yeah.
a 95% probability. That's something someone can grasp
Yeah.
onto. And another thing that we did with a money tree within our next generation, we'll release that in July, is what we're calling planning pages,
Mhm.
or analysis pages. And these are essentially interactive pages within the solution that is very conducive to a live conversation with the client,
Yeah.
because you can hover over things and see the level of detail that goes into that asset or that month of income or that month of expenses. In addition to that, you can also then make the changes. We have what's called future value changes, where again, they say they want to downsize or purchase or change. They have the ability to do that live and see the result. And again, it goes right into the graph. So did the graph taper up? Did it taper down? Did it not change? All
Yeah.
of that to very visually give someone an idea. Because and again, the focus though is asking the questions, because a lot of times when clients come in, they're afraid to ask, right? They're like, you're the person with the purse strings, and are you going to let me spend my money, type of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So as you're drawing those questions out, gets to be kind of fun, because
yeah,
a lot of times what happens, at least what advisors say, is the clients are more on the side of, we're not going to make it. Then when I show them we are going to make it, then it begins the creativity of, well, what if I wanted to sell my business 5 years
yeah,
earlier? Or what if I wanted to buy a business in retirement? Do I have enough to do that? If I fail, am I still going to? I mean, those are real questions happening. And a lot of that is, I think, this next generation, but obviously a lot of it was also COVID. I mean, I
yeah,
think with COVID, the shutdown, people wanted out. The great resignation was a real thing.
yeah,
I think, I'm in my mid 50s, and I've got colleagues that have just said, what, I'm stepping away. I can, and I think there's something else I want to do.
yeah,
And it's not necessarily something sedentary. Some of these people are starting their own businesses, their own consulting agencies. Some are starting charities. So it's interesting, it's diverse, but there's also a lot of energy in it. And I think
yeah.
that's what we want to try to draw out of clients.
I love it. I love it. You know, you're talking about scenario planning
Yes,
there,
yes.
and I think you hit on something that I want to make sure we hit a little harder on is the advisor's role in scenario planning, right? It's like, yes,
hmm
occasionally a client's going to come in and go, "Hey, Pat, what would it look like if we decided to, my wife and I, to quit our jobs now and
hmm
do something different or whatever, right? Or what, we've always told you we're retiring to Florida, but what if we decided on doing Arizona instead? How's that
hmm
going to change things? Yeah.
Right.
So those are a couple of, small scenarios. Or, hey, we originally thought our kid was a state school kid. Turns out she's smart. She might be an Ivy League kid, right?
hmm
Oh, that type of thing, right?
Yep.
That changes some things. But I wonder if in today's world, because of what you just said, right? That as an advisor, you might want to make sure you're asking the client, hey, what scenarios do you guys talk about?
Exactly.
So, for instance, I'll just use me. I'll throw myself out there, and my wife and I, we don't know if we're going to be in Austin long term.
hmm
We just don't know. To the point of like, if somebody said, Mike, will you live in Austin 10 years from now? I'd probably say no. And the reason why I say that is, well, I have two kids. One's in college now, and one's in high school. If somebody had asked me if I was going to move to Austin 2 years before I moved to Austin, I would have told them they were crazy,
hmm
right? And my son, the oldest one, he's going to LSU, but he's studying sports administration because he wants to be a basketball coach, and he wants
hmm
to ideally work in the NBA as a coach. But he also has this other potential, like likely, of working for the Walt Disney Corporation because we grew up in a Disney family. He's currently
hmm
doing a semester at Disney in the Disney College program. So the likelihood is Jackson, my oldest, won't stay in Austin. There's no
Yep.
NBA team here. And Walt Disney does not have a presence here. So his two biggest like A or B choices,
hmm
he's very like laser, like these are my two things I might want to do. Neither one of them likely include him living in Austin. And I don't know about my daughter, but I know I don't know if she's going to stay in Austin and go to
hmm
UT or whatever. Like I suspect she'll likely go to a coastal school. And so then it becomes like, well, what the heck are we still doing here? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't
Right.
know. Now,
Right.
not that we want to chase our kids, but a real scenario for us would be,
hmm
hey, Pat, or you would pull out of me like, and I would think any advisor today would ask their clients like, hey, so what do you guys talk about like the stuff that's on this plan is
Right.
on the plan, but how often do you talk about maybe we'll move to, I'll just pick a city out of the hat, Atlanta, or maybe
hmm
we'll move to San Diego, or I've always wanted to own a coffee shop. I thought that'd be kind of cool. I love coffee
hmm
shops. Well, like, have you talked about this type of stuff? Like what? And then you might surface things.
Right. No, absolutely. And be careful about your son going off to the Disney program. My daughter did that and got
Yeah.
engaged.
Ah!
So, so we were talking about how we wound up in Austin, and that was her and her husband both did the Disney
Oh, really? I
internship.
didn't know
Yes,
this. That's what a
after I
coincidence.
know. So it's quite. We're gonna have to get together for sure and
Yeah.
kind of share stories. And plus, our move to Austin. I mean, when my wife and I decided to move here again because of again, like you, I've got two daughters, and one is in California, one is in Austin, Texas. And coming out of COVID, we kind of had started having those conversations.
Yeah.
My wife and I were going out to dinner, we would be talking about, well, what do you think about this? Do you see us here long term? And with our parents, we want to make sure we're caregivers for them, and just those things. So you hit the nail on the head. Advisors, and I know many of them are, but if you're not, that's a great way to put it, Mike. Is tell me when you're out to dinner together and you're just talking about life scenarios, what's coming up right now.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to kind of get into that third column, if you will, of making very real-time changes. And clients are going to like that.
Yeah.
And they might be a little shy to tell you they've got a couple million in retirement and they want to spend a half million on a bill. They're going to be nervous about
Mm.
any changes or modifications, but just laying it out like that really, I think,
Yeah.
can draw that scenario out. And that's how we really wanted to build our solution, so that you've got multiple scenarios that you can build for people. You can copy them, you can save them to where you can utilize them and get them involved. Have them take a look at the report through the portal and just, write some things down, or, email some suggestions to you on things that they want to look at for when you meet with them. But you're spot on. Having those real life scenario types conversations is very helpful to
Yeah.
build that relationship between advisor and client for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, because we all have it, right? Like, we all
Hmm.
have things that we're like that are rattling around in our head. Like, maybe I might want to do this thing.
Right. Right.
And as an advisor, like, your job is to provide quality advice, right? To help
Exactly.
them achieve their life goals, going back to goals-based planning.
Hmm.
And money is the tool, right? It's a tool to
Right.
help them achieve those things. So if you're
Right.
don't wait until the client surprises you. Like, ask the questions. Like, oh, they might
Yep.
want to move to Florida. Like, okay, one question you'd want to ask as an advisor is like, okay, Florida, no state tax. Everybody knows that.
Hmm.
But hey, you probably want to work in some sort of budget for evacuation due to hurricanes. Like,
Right.
do you have a plan for where you go when they tell you you should go?
Right. Insurance.
Insurance. Insurance is going up dramatically. So what you thought your housing cost might be low, it might not
Hmm.
be as low as you think it is. Like, and you
Right.
be able to talk to the client about that type of stuff, not to like yuck their yum, if you will,
Yes.
harsh it
Yes.
on their plan. But it's more they like, hey, let's make sure you have all the information, right? Because people
Right.
don't always have the information. You as an
Right.
advisor can come to them with, hey, these are things we need to make sure we think about.
Hmm.
It will affect your plan. I've got an uncle who moved to Florida, and he's like, man, it's not just the hurricanes, it's the insurance. He's like,
Yeah.
I can't remember what he said he pays for insurance every month, but he's like, annually, and it's getting rough, and it's going to keep going up. It's not going to come down,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so that's not to throw rocks at Florida. It's just like, hey, this is a reality, right?
Right.
So
It's a reality. That's what clients, they they want to be able to bring that positive idea of, we want to move to Florida. And your job is, don't kill it right away,
yeah,
but say, that's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about why. Is it fishing? Is it golf? Is it family? What? Tell me,
hmm
and just build that story and say, okay, well, let's take a look at, it's almost like your balance sheet, right? Let's take a look at your assets. I love Florida. It's sunny. We can fish, we can boat, we can do all these things. Okay, let's look at the expenses. Okay, housing, insurance. Well, let's spend some time there, and we all know
yeah,
what's been taking place there. So, absolutely, very relevant conversation. And
yeah,
so, one of the things we've taken into consideration are what we call future value changes in our tools, so that when you have those thoughts and conversations, you can just very quickly create that asset, liability, income, and expense, and immediately see. So, for a great example would be on the move to Florida. If I did a plan for you last year and the fact that it's gotten hit twice this year, okay, let's update and let's get real about the insurance side, because
yep,
there's going to be an effect on that. Let's also talk, to your point, about evacuation as well as cleanup. The closer you are to the coast, the more there will be a cleanup of debris and sand and just all those things. And let's figure out how to still make your goal happen, but let's also take a look at those things that are real. And so these future value changes allow the advisor to more or less just pop up an asset, liability, income, expense, create it, and then again insert it and see what happens, across the plan. Because you're exactly right. Things happen, things change, and we want to be able to show that to them fairly quickly.
Yeah. It's so funny. I know this has nothing, well, it has something to do with what we're talking about. Somebody should create a Monte Carlo simulation for non-market related, like stock market, equity, and fixed income market
Hmm.
related scenarios, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
natural disaster. You live
Hmm.
in Florida. You live in, take your pick of part of the country. How likely, and I know, look, your insurance policy sort of reflects this, but it
Right.
doesn't 100% reflect it, right? Just yet. Like, how likely is it that you're going to have some sort of natural disaster
Hmm.
scenario, and how might that affect you, right?
Right. Right.
Because, and if in fact, I want to talk about business owners here in a few minutes.
Hmm.
That's another component that would affect it. Before
Yes.
we jump to the business owner thing, um, I love having people like you on the show who are working for a firm that gives you what I would call a bird's eye view of what's happening in the industry
Hmm.
more than, like, the average, even asset managers don't get the kind of view. I think that you at a firm that provides software that advisors are using to manage client relationships and, and client assets. What do you see, if you can see this information, like,
Hmm.
that clients are looking at most, right? Like, so, obviously clients can log in on their own and look at
Hmm.
stuff. What do you find that they seem to be zeroing in on most frequently when on the reports or on the solution, I guess
Hmm.
it.
That's a great question. And I will say there is an it depends. Am I
Okay.
an accumulation or am I pre-post retirement?
Okay.
If it's pre-post retirement, what we hear and what we're seeing from a research perspective is the expense, because there's that concern of, I'm making six figures, I'm going to go to five figures just from one day to the next because I said I'm retiring, right?
Yeah.
Um, and maybe that's not the case, but probably for most it is. That there's going to be a significant decrease. And so for some, in that pre and post retirement, it really kind of revolves around that expense and the what if. Um,
Mm.
do I have the cars paid off? Do I have the houses paid off? Can I really live on what I can? And so you take a look at AARP and those types of media outlets, if you will, and a lot of their articles, and you're starting to see this on social media. If you've got 500,000 retirement and you're over the age of 55, you can make it. So, kind of getting to that
Yeah.
fear factor of, do I have enough? And so that's kind of what we're seeing there. On that accumulation phase, a little bit more interesting with the younger generation um, is they don't want retirement to be a certain day.
Yeah.
We see some that are saying, I'll retire when I've got X amount available and I'm going to work towards that, or I'm going to, again, own my own business. Um, and we see a variety because, again, this, the next generation, the average tenure in a job is what, 2 to 3 years.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of different jobs, a lot of different experiences that are taking place, and there can be costs with that. If you go from wanting to work at a large corporation to possibly starting your own consultancy or your own business, and that doesn't work out, and then you go back into the corporate world, if you will, there's costs with that. So there, it seems like they're looking more for options.
Yeah.
What are the options that will get me where I want to go, when I also don't know necessarily when I want to go, where I want to
Yeah.
go. So it's kind of interesting. So I'd say, from at least my purview, that's kind of the two things that we're looking at, because we're trying to say, okay, what tools then does the advisor need to more or less address these things, knowing, it's a very broad category of things people can do. So that's why on the tax planning and estate planning side, we're digging into more things that CFPs and tax planners will be needing and wanting. And then on the other side, more goals and objective based, of being able to get ideas out there, create the scenarios of job changes,
Yeah.
create the scenarios, more advisors working with younger generations. We're seeing, previously thought younger generation, I just give me robo. I don't need anybody telling me how I need to do things. Completely
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah.
Want more engagement, more experience to understand what their options are. And so trying to lean into that to say, okay, and developing goals based, let's make sure we can still create those different types of assets, liabilities, and scenarios where these certain things happen across, a 5, 10, 20 year span.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that. And maybe I interpreted this slightly different from when the
Hmm.
way you were describing it, because you talked about the people who are either close to retirement or kind of in asset consumption
Hmm.
phase, and then younger folks effectively who are still in asset accumulation or whatever. Are you finding that there's a generational gap or change? Like, so younger folks are thinking, hey, look, I don't know, like retirement in the classic sense of the word isn't a thing that I think about as much. Like,
Hmm.
so, for a generation, like, I'm Gen X. So, our generation and older, there was this notion that you're going to work. Well, we were brought up and educated, right?
Right,
In high school,
right.
like you're going to work for a company, you're going to work for 35, 40
Hmm.
years, and then you're going to retire, and then you're going to move to a retirement place and
Right.
do lots of leisure, right? And
Exactly.
the scenarios that you taught advisors do, like, oh, okay, in the first 10 years that somebody is retired, they're going to travel a lot, they're going to go out to eat a
Hmm.
lot, then they're going to slow down a little bit, less travel, and then of course the last X amount of years, they're probably going to just be homebodies to some
Right.
extent. And
Right.
we know some of those assumptions were off. But I wonder, like, I think about myself. Again, I'm Gen X. I'm not saying I'll never retire,
Hmm.
if you will, in the classic sense of the word. But I'm at that stage where it's like we were talking about earlier, where I'm thinking, well, I don't know, my kids are about to, one's halfway through college almost,
Hmm.
one's halfway through high school. Like I start to think like, oh, this child raising chapter is almost done. Like then it becomes like this whole new chapter. I'm still gonna be young.
Exactly.
I
Right.
got some cool stuff. So I don't know. Like, are you seeing like more and more clients
Absolutely.
are like, hey, I don't know that it's retirement. I think it's just like I got a new opportunity for adventure to have
Right.
here.
I have a new gig. You're spot on. And again, whether it was generational, whether it was COVID, just seeing quite a bit of that.
Yeah,
And even like the younger generation, I know my daughters and friends of mine and their children as well. They travel. They're
yeah,
very well traveled. And I know just in talking with a few of them and our children included, it's like, well, we didn't want to necessarily wait till we retire to start traveling. We'd like to do it now and we'd
yeah,
like to go to more places. And it seems to be more cost effective. And so yeah, I think you're exactly right. I'm also Gen X as well, a little bit older, but I look at retirement as, I'm in technology. As long as I can provide some type of value,
yeah,
I love what I'm doing.
yeah,
And whether it's, managing a software company, whether it's, continue to work at a technology company that is in fintech, or whether it's teaching at a college and whatever it might
yeah,
be, all those things, are possibilities for us. It's not a matter of, okay, you're now 65, sir. This lane over here will take you to, the retirement community of your choice, that type
yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
I think we're learning the ball's in our court.
Well,
And, we get to decide what that final chapter is, but we also get to decide as a married couple or as a single person what that first quarter, second quarter, first chapter, second chapter is going to be as well.
sure.
And it isn't graduate college, get a job, work for 30 years. For some, it may be. For some, it may be. But there's a lot of variety out there and there's
Yeah, for
options.
sure. That's awesome. That's awesome. I know we only have like 2 minutes left with each other here, but I'm sorry, we went long, right? I
It was
I want to
Disney
ask.
and Terry Blacks.
I know exactly. I want to ask one quick question.
Yes.
On you mentioned business ownership. So if you go
Yes.
on the site, if you go to Moneytree, and this kind of leads into like what we're talking about. You go to the site, uh, you'll notice that business ownership is highlighted as one of the
Hmm.
functions that the platform is designed to assist advisors with their clients. And we've had several episodes in which we have talked about, you know, financial advisors who have
Hmm.
business owners in their client roster or who should be seeking attracting business owners and helping those business owners with various things in their business because they could be potentially great reservoirs for wealth to manage. Um, what is it that is in that business ownership planning feature that really
Mhm.
stands out to you?
Well, we really took a stance that the business is an asset.
Okay.
And like an asset, there is a beginning date, there's valuation, there are transactions, there's worth. And so you have the ability to build that business, whether it's a $100 million manufacturing company or a $1 million coffee company. So you have the ability to build that asset out and treat it as such with regards to revenue that might be spun off coming to the individual client, or the time that you sell that asset and what that windfall might be. And even if it's a sell where you work as a consultant for 5 years and they pay you X, and then you get one lump sum at the end of the 5 years. I mean, all of that, you've got the ability to build out in our solution. So that's really what we did, is just try to simplify it, step back and say, this is an asset. And we give you the parameters to really build that asset to your liking or how it fits your client.
Love it. Love it. Well, Pat, this has been fantastic. So website is moneytree.com.
Mhm.
You and Moneytree are both active on LinkedIn. Is there any place else that people should be tuning in to learn more and kind of follow along with what you guys are doing?
Yeah, well, I guess stay tuned. One of the
Okay.
things that we are ramping up is our PR piece.
Okay.
And so hope to do another podcast with you, Mike, but hopefully others as well. Take a look at us on social, follow us, and we'll be updating the events that we'll be attending next year as well on our website. So look for that coming probably towards December, January time period. But certainly just take a look at moneytree.com and give us a try.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on the show, sir.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Look forward to next time.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge props to my man, Patrick Spencer, for coming on the show and giving me a massive craving for barbecue, and also following up because we're getting into that barbecue later this week. So I'm super excited about it. Maybe we'll share some photos of ourselves having that barbecue and make you jealous on the internet. All right. That's all I have for you today. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform and be nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. See ya. Bye.